You're listening to the Bloodshed Baddies.
What's up? I'm Lex,
And I'm Sam.
and we are the Bloodshed Baddies.
Woo, woo, woo. Hello, hello, baddies.
Hello. So, Sam, tell me, what did you do this weekend?
So this weekend, our plans actually got changed. We were supposed to hang out with some of my husband's new work friends, but it fell through, which ended up being not a bad thing because on Saturday night, when this comes out, it will actually be mine and my husband's first wedding anniversary.
Ooh, 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 love.
Happy anniversary, Brandon. But we ended up watching our full wedding video and had a glass of wine. So it ended up being a really nice night.
That's adorable. Did you vote today?
I did vote today. Do you see my sticker?
I saw your sticker. That's a weird sticker.
I know it is. It says I voted and then in my county.
Oh, county specific.
Oh, oh, oh. What about you? What did you do this weekend?
This weekend was a blast. My boyfriend Dustin, he turned 40 this year.
4-0.
Yeah. So for his 40th birthday, I planned a trip for us to Blue Ridge, Georgia, and did not tell him that all of his friends were going to meet us up there. So it was very cool. We were at a brewery Friday night, and his friend and his wife walked in, and Dustin was shocked, thought that was the
Oh.
surprise. I just watched the video of it because she videotaped it. It's hilarious. He like throws his phone on the table and is like, shut the fuck up. Uh, and then a couple hours later, a group of four of his friends showed up. So then he freaked out again. And then about an hour later, the last friend showed up and we just had a blast. Blue Ridge is a super fun town. It's gorgeous this time of year.
I
It's
was
in
just
the
gonna say,
mountains. It's all fall colors. They have some
oh,
cute breweries. We went to a winery. It was so fun.
that's awesome. I want to go so bad. It sounds beautiful.
It was. I highly recommend. I've never heard of it before. Our friend Gunnar had gone last year with his wife, and I would definitely go back. It was so fun. Such an easy drive from Nashville. So,
We're gonna have to plan a trip.
yes. Okie dokie. So, I want to do a little book club corner before we get started because I
Yes.
finished Into the Peaks about an hour ago.
Woo! What were your thoughts?
Okay. I have a lot of thoughts. We are going to post reviews on our Instagram one day this week, so be on the lookout for that. But it was very different than I thought. It's an indie book, so I think we had talked about like via text that there are a lot of typos, which makes it a little bit hard to read.
Oh, and then once you see one, you see them all. And I feel bad because obviously that's hard to write a book, but I can't with the typos. I agree.
Yes. I want to see how you feel about the main cop guy, Luke.
So, how much should we give away on this?
I feel like you can skip ahead if you are reading the book and don't want spoilers.
Oh, perfect.
So this is spoiler alert. Skip ahead a couple minutes.
I thought that he was going to be guilty and part of this whole thing for the longest
I
time.
I think he is still.
Oh,
Because at the end he asks Yvette to come back with him, which is exactly what he did
you are so right. I didn't even think of that. I do
to
have to
Izzy.
say, I was very intrigued. Like, kudos to the writer. I kept flipping. Like, I need to find out what's happening. I need to find out what's happening. And if you, what you said is true, I like that a lot. I like that device. That's cool, I think.
Yeah. I do think I got a little bit frustrated because it just seems like how does the same thing keep happening over and over and over when they're trying to run away?
Very
How is he
unrealistic.
always, yeah, how is he always there? How is he always getting them? How is it like literally a repeat of what I'm guessing is some stuff that happened in the last book? Because I think we said last time it is a sequel. However, you can read it as a standalone and understand what was happening.
For sure, for sure. I am interested. Maybe I'll go back one day and read the first one to see how that one plays out as well.
Yeah. And I think I saw that there might be a third one coming out.
Very cool. We'll have to read that.
Then I also wanted to say it is November, so it is now a new month for book club.
Yay.
I have read this month's book and I love, 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 love this month's book. But Samantha has not read it.
Eek.
We are reading A Court of Mist and Fury, which is the second book in the series of A Court of Thorns and Roses. And if you are a Court of Thorns and Roses girly, you are screaming at Samantha for not have read the series yet.
It
Um,
is not my genre of book. However, I don't think I liked the first one. I did say that. So I'm
yes.
intrigued.
So our friend Jamie, who is in our book club, she and I are big ACOTAR girlies. So we conspired that on my pick, I would pick the first one in the series. And then on her pick, she would pick the second one in the series. So we could make Samantha and Pacey turn into ACOTAR girlies as well.
So I'm basically forced into it.
But she's going to love it because also all the people who are ACOTAR girlies are screaming at you that the first book is so different and you need to read the series.
Which is why I'm very excited. And I honestly do really want to read the second one and see if it's more my vibe or how that is.
Are you planning on physically reading it or listening to it? Because Sam listened to the first one.
I have not decided yet. I have looked to see if the audio was available and it's not. So I'm still trying to figure it out. I've been trying to get into audiobooks more and I feel like because these are so long and it gives me more time to like listen to it. So I think I might try to listen to it, but I haven't decided fully yet.
Awesome. I just got on Libby. I use Libby. So does Sam. If anybody doesn't know what Libby is, it's a library app where you can rent books and audiobooks from your local libraries for free. I just got the first one on Libby to listen to, so I'm gonna start listening to the series. I've already physically read, but now I want to listen to
Cause she's cray cray. No, I'm just kidding.
them.
Also, though, before we get started, I did want to say not only will it be my first wedding anniversary, gotta say it again, but it will also be Veterans Day when this comes out. So thank you to all the military people, to all the veterans. We love you. We appreciate you, the families as well. Like we know the sacrifices that are made. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Are we ready?
I'm ready. I'm excited about this case. Not that I'm ever excited about talking about horrible things, but I am excited because I think, if I'm correct, this case hits quite close to home for us.
You are exactly right. So, for those of you who do not know, Lex and I are born and raised Michiganders. So, this case is one that I think most people, but especially the ones from Michigan, will know about. Again, I know you know it, Lex, but today I will be talking about the murder of Tara Grant. I think with it hitting so close to home, I went a little cray cray with the research. A lot of it coming from Slaying in the Suburbs by Steve Miller and Andrea Billups, and then articles online that, of course, we will link in the show notes. But this one might be a little bit longer. Anyway, to my Michigan people, I hope I do this case justice. And for everyone else, buckle up and enjoy this crazy ride. Tara Grant was born Tara DeStramp on June 28th, 1972, and was the first child to Mary and Gerald. But guess what? Everybody called her dad Gerald, Lex.
What?
Dusty.
Dusty!
That is what we call her boyfriend. 3 years later, her younger sister Alicia was born, and they all lived in Perkins, which is a small Michigan town. By all accounts, her childhood seemed close knit, but she did pen a letter in 2006 to her parents saying, quote, Dad, I have not fully forgiven you for how you treated mom throughout my entire childhood. Mom, I have not fully forgiven you for being passive and not standing up for yourself. So clearly it wasn't
Oh,
perfect.
okay.
She also wrote in a journal that she always felt in competition with her sister, which is sad to me because I get it, like how people always used to compare us, Lex, but that was never really our dynamic. I feel this competitive nature. Tara was very type A and very involved. She was a cheerleader. She played the clarinet. She was in 4-H and graduated third in her class of 40 students in 1990.
That is impressive.
Yes, she had no filter and no problem sticking up for herself. And according to a high school friend, she would even sometimes tell her dad to F off in arguments, but apparently it was just their dynamic and it wasn't like out of hatred or anything.
No filter and saying whatever you want reminds me of somebody I know. You.
Yeah, there are many of time that has happened. Sometimes good, sometimes not so great. I thought you were going
And
to say
you
you at
too.
first. In high school, she had a boyfriend that was kind of on and off again, and that bled into college. Apparently, she was known to, and I hate this saying so much, but quote unquote, wear the pants of that relationship. I guess she could
Ew.
tear him a new, yes, I guess she could tear him a new one every once in a while. She just wanted things to go her way. Again, she was very type A, but I really, really want to stress that this did not make her unlikable in any way. And people were actually really captivated by her and her energy and her smile.
Also, I think sometimes when they say that a woman wears the pants in the relationship, what they mean is that the woman is an equal partner and has her own opinions and thoughts in the relationship. And that's not a bad thing.
Oh, I know. That's why one of the reasons I just hate it, hate it, hate it. After high school, though, she went to Bay Dinock Community College in Escanaba for 2 years before transferring to Michigan State University, baby.
Boo. Go blue.
Go green, where she lived in Abbott Hall, which is my old stomping grounds. Shout out to the Abbott Hall gang. She also joined a sorority, Sigma Alpha, which her roommate belonged to. And she ends up graduating from Michigan State University with honors and a degree in business.
She is so smart.
Yeah, she's killing it. The summer of 1994, my birth year, through her roommates in Cedar Village, which is an apartment complex at Michigan State. And I don't know if you remember, Lex, but I took you there to party one time.
I literally was say, have I partied there?
Yes, you have. And Tara meets Stephen Grant for the first time. Let's chat.
Boo.
Let's chat quickly about Steve. Stephen Grant was born January 18th, 1970. He had an older sister born 3 years prior named Kelly. His dad, Al, opened and closed a series of small, profitable shops every 7 years or so and became a minor player in the sizable supplier business when Ford, GM, and Chrysler were really the big three. Although it appeared to be this all American family, Al, the father, was a heavy drinker who would often stay at bars until last call. And very sadly, his mom would like wake him up sometimes and be like, we have to go get your dad from this bar.
Oh.
In 1978, when Stephen was 8, his mom, Susan Grant, actually left Al after 12 years of marriage and filed for divorce. But after a brief separation, they reconciled. In 1984, they end up separating for good because they're just fighting all the time. Steve wasn't like an awful kid, but he was pretty quirky. At 14, he actually created a bomb with his friend, but it seemed out of
What?
curiosity. Yeah. It seemed more out of curiosity, though, and not of like malice of him wanting to bomb things, just was interested in making one.
I guess it is like it's one of those things that in hindsight, like knowing who he is now sounds like a red flag. But if other people had done the same thing and did not have the same outcome of life as he did, you probably wouldn't be so like, oh my God, about it.
Agreed. He also apparently liked to shoplift. He just liked taking things a step further and pushing the envelope. He did like guns, but was very adamant outside of hunting that no animal should ever get hurt. In 1981, he was actually arrested and charged with failure to show permit for a gun while he was driving. He also had a very bad driving history, so some criminal weird activity, but nothing too severe or crazy.
It seems like he was kind of just like a little shit.
Yes, 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 yes. Grant graduated from Utica High School, and in 1991, he went to Michigan State University as a sophomore
Boo.
because he completed some credits at Macomb Community College
Woo
before.
woo. I did that my senior year too.
Monarchs. He lived in Snyder Hall, which was right next door to Abbott, and was originally going into teaching and also worked at Olive Garden. To which I said, ew.
Samantha, if you don't know, got a degree in teaching and worked at Olive Garden.
I said too many similarities, Lex. He also worked at a bike shop where he stole $20 and was fired, which is
This
silly.
guy just can't stop stealing.
Yes. While in East Lansing, though, he found a new passion for politics and he starts working with Senator Jack Faxon, a Democrat from Farmington Hills, as an intern, and then starts going to MSU part time and eventually ends up dropping out of MSU. And his little political career ends there.
That was
Anyway.
short lived.
Yes. Anyway, Steve and Tara meet through mutual friends. And to Steve, Tara was this beautiful farm girl from the UP. Tara wasn't interested at first, but was intrigued by him because to her, he is a city boy with aspirations at that time to be a lawyer. He does eventually win her over, and she agrees to go on a date where he shows her all around Detroit and takes her to Fishbones for dinner and then the DIA.
I used to live right next door to the DIA.
I literally thought that while I was writing this. Beautiful. It's a very beautiful like museum. What really sealed the deal for Tara, though, was several weeks later, her grandmother unexpectedly passes away, and Steve makes the like 6.5 hour long drive there, surprising her and her family just to be there for Tara. And this prompts her to end things officially with that on and off again boo, who was also at the funeral.
Oh, some
Yes.
drama at the funeral.
Small town drama. They get an apartment together in Okemos, and Steve proposes in front of the DIA in 1994 after Tara has graduated. By the fall, she gets a job at the Washington Group International's Troy office. Steve, however, is having a hard time finding a job, so he ends up joining his father at USG Babbitt, which is a tiny tool company in Mount Clemens that was pretty successful. They also move into an apartment in Auburn Hills around this time. And then September 28th, 1996, they get married in Tara's hometown. Interestingly, on their wedding announcement, it said that they were both MSU graduates, but Steve was 20 credits short, so kind of weird.
Seems like he's a bit of a liar as well as a thief.
Yes. Also at the wedding, people mentioned they thought he was a jerk because he was giving orders and being all mean, to which I say, why? But apparently, when they first meet him, a lot of people are just turned off by him. He talks too much, he has an opinion about everything, etc., which I say red flag.
I was just gonna say, put up the red flag.
Anyway, Tara is kicking booty at work and becomes an international business executive for the Washington Group and is now going on frequent business trips to Spain, Germany, like all over. She's killing it and making a six-figure salary, which around this time and even now is huge.
Bad ass.
100%. Apparently, both of them are a little more about money after this, though, and people from her hometown say she changed a little bit, and so did he. Steve is working with his dad still, so he's not joining her on her travels. And this, of course, is challenging on their marriage. By 2006, which was a year before her death, she's traveling so much that she's basically gone for 5 days a week and only comes home on the weekends, which again, hard on a marriage. According to some sources, their sex life was struggling and he's insecure and thinks she's like way too close to a male coworker.
Of course he does.
In 2000, though, they give birth to their first child. And in 2001, they move into a bigger home near Stony Creek. For those of you not from Michigan, Stony Creek is this gorgeous park stretching across 4,435 scenic areas. There's beaches, hiking, biking. It's a great place to be close to. In 2002, they have their second child. And in 2003, they hire their first au pair to help Steve since Tara has to travel so much with work. But for some reason, they're having a hard time keeping au pairs. Some would stay months and some would stay only weeks. By the end of this, they had 7 au pairs altogether, which, like, wow. And think about this near the end.
Yeah, I feel like if I were Tara, I'd be very concerned with what was happening when I was gone if we're losing au pairs that fast. I feel like that's not a normal rate to lose au pairs.
No, not at all, because they started hiring au pairs in 2003 and her death was in 2007 early. So a lot of turnover. In late 2005, Tara and Steve are telling people they are moving to Germany for Tara's job and that Steve is hopefully going to get a job at the Washington Group in Germany. This goes as far as them sending their Christmas card and putting it on their Christmas card in like one of those background information cards. But for some reason, it falls through and it doesn't happen. And I'm sure it's disappointment to them both, but especially Steve, who seems to be struggling under Tara's successful shadow. Around this time, she also goes to this really impactful work conference that helped opens her up emotionally. And that's where she penned those letters in the beginning to her parents and sisters. She even writes one to Steve, and she says she realizes she puts work first and hasn't been present, and that she wants to renew their vows and work on their marriage.
Wow. This all happened at a work conference?
Yeah, apparently some very impactful work conference. Should we go?
I also feel like, is it a cult?
I say it positive, and you're like, no, 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 something's wrong here.
It reminds me of like that Nexium cult where it was like all
Oh,
work conference, like
yes.
getting better and being successful, and then it ended up being crazy. But that's just, I think everything's a cult. So sorry, guys. Anyways, go on.
Anyway, August 21st, 2006, Verena Dierkes, a 19-year-old girl from Germany with a dream to always come to the US, becomes the grant's new au pair. She makes $285 a week plus room and board and a vehicle, so not super bad at that time. In January of 2007, Steve calls an old friend, Dina, who he has kept in touch with here and there, but this time it's a little bit different, a little more flirtatious. They end up exchanging email addresses. And again, he fabricates things and says he's the one traveling for work and that his wife is cheating on him with her boss. And then they set up a meeting for January 30th, but he ends up telling her he can't do this and he cancels.
This guy can't tell the truth to save his goddamn motherfucking life.
On this night, and this is so bizarre to me, he snoops in Tara's email because he apparently is wiping the computer to give it to the au pair. And he finds emails between Tara and her old boo, the on and off again one. But these emails are from like 2 years ago and they were crossing the line. This was something Steve knew about already. And this actually sent them into couples counseling. I'm not sure how long they went or if they were still in it, but during this time, Steve actually called the boo and threatened to put a bullet in his head. And besides letting Tara know what her husband said, this ended all communication between Tara and her ex.
I understand being upset. I
Yes.
understand being so angry, but I just feel like that threat is taking it a little too far.
A little too much. But on this particular night, he is reading these, which, like, why? And then strangely asks Verena, the au pair, to read them also.
What? No wonder he's losing fucking all pairs.
And then says something weird like someone should beat his wife up for that. Someone should beat Tara up.
Oh my God. I would quit on the spot. I'd be like, nope, not hanging out with you anymore.
Then he proceeds to tell the au pair he wants to sleep with her, but was afraid to tell her because he thought she would pack her bags. Which, let me remind you of the 6 other au pairs. If I'm a betting lady, this isn't the first time he tried this weird stuff.
And isn't she only 19?
She's 19. Now we're at February 4th, and he sends Verena a super flirty email while Tara is in the home. So things are escalating. 2 days later, February 6th, he makes his move on the couch, but allegedly she isn't receptive. The next night, though, they spend the night together in Tara and Steve's bed.
This poor girl, because she is young and vulnerable and she has moved here from Germany. She can't just go home.
Apparently, they only kissed and cuddled in this bed.
Lies.
February 8th, they go on a little date to B-dubs, and he tells her he's falling in love with her. Like, slow down.
They go on a date?
Yes.
You're like, hey, we snugged in the bed and now I'm going to take you on a date?
Snugged. That night, he performs oral on her and she allegedly doesn't reciprocate. And the next morning, apparently the daughter almost catches them. This is February 8th. February 9th, Tara is scheduled to come home from a business trip.
Wait, time out real fast.
Yes.
This is so weird because February 8th and 9th were the days before Maury went missing.
Yes. I forgot about that. Isn't that wild?
Sorry to interrupt, but that's just so weird.
No, that's actually very weird. That was such a...
Okay.
That's trippy a little bit. So it's February 9th. Tara's coming home from a business trip, and records show Tara places a minute-long call after landing at 9:10 p.m. to Steve. At 9:44, there is another call from Steve to Tara that lasted 1 minute. Then there's another call from Steve to Tara at 9:47, and this call lasts 18 minutes until she reaches her home. This is the last records on Tara's phone because February 9th, 2007, Tara Grant goes missing. The story that Steve Grant told the au pair, her friends, family, and the police was that on Friday, February 9th, Tara took an evening flight home for the weekend from the office she managed in San Juan, Puerto Rico, which is true. Her flight stopped in Newark for a plane change, and she arrived at DTW after 9 p.m. After she got home, they argued because she told him she had to get back to the office and leave a day early. According to him, she got on the phone with someone, and then she walked out with her luggage to a black car service sedan and did not return. Let's remember, though, her phone records ended with the call to Steve. Steve said altogether her coming home, the argument, and her leaving lasted about 20 minutes. For 5 days, Steve says he didn't hear from her, and he reached out to his mother-in-law, sister-in-law, and even her coworkers, and they told him she was probably just cooling off from their argument. He also left her some angry and frantic messages during this time. The au pair even tells him to call her because she knows that she wouldn't have deserted the children like this because even though she traveled a lot for work, she was very involved in their lives. And when she came home from the weekend, spent the whole entire time with her kids. February 10th, the day after his wife goes missing, after running some errands, the au pair and Steve spend the night again, but this time in the au pair's bed.
Ew, 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 ew. His wife is missing for one
Yes.
night. And he's like, let's go hook up in your bed.
Yes. During this time, with Tara missing, Verena goes to Mr. B's. Do you remember that place?
Oh, I loved Mr. Beast.
With some friends, and she tells one of them that she is in love with Steve.
Oh, this poor baby.
On February 12th, he calls her supervisor. The supervisor instructs him to go to the police. The supervisor offers to go with him, but Steve says that he has to do it himself.
Red flag. Someone's boss should not be the one who tells you to go to the police. If Dustin was missing for a day and I couldn't get a hold of him, I would be like, I'm going to the police myself. I wouldn't wait 5 days and then call somebody's boss, or however many days this is, call someone's boss and be like, what should I do?
100% agree. I'm like, why did you not call the next morning? Maybe that night you think, okay, she's gone. I'm scared. That next morning, you get on the phone. February 13th, he calls her mom and then gets a call from her sister calling him out on his BS and basically being like, go to the police station and make things happen right now. On February 14th, 2007, Stephen Grant officially goes to the police and says his wife is missing
On Valentine's Day.
on Valentine's frickin' Day.
This is sus.
Yep. She is considered an endangered missing person almost immediately because she has not been on her phone for the past 5 days and has not used her cards since February 9th, which she used to pay for parking at the airport. The police also notice Steve has a cut on his face. They ask later about it at a home visit, and he says a metal shaving was cut under his glasses at work.
And that's why he didn't go to the police right away.
Oh, he also is like, I don't want her back, which is super sus. And the police leave asking him to take this lie detector test. And he does do it eventually, but the lie detector test comes back inconclusive. He passes some questions and fails others, so it's not usable.
Well, and also, like, I feel like lie detector tests are just like not the best way to do anything because they are not scientific, but also like if you fail one, it's automatically like, oh, you did it. And if you pass one, it's automatically like, oh, how'd you beat the lie detector test?
Exactly. So, not great anyway. From the beginning, though, the police did have their suspicions of Steve, especially after they called around rental companies and not one of them picked Tara up, like Steve said in his story. So they do put surveillance on Steve. The days after he reports his wife missing, or I'm sorry, the day after he reports his wife missing, Steve Grant writes a $10,000 check to retain David Green as his attorney. After getting his attorney, he is not talking to the police, but he is talking to the media and legit any reporter that wants to talk to him. And from here, it's a media circus.
Gag me.
Tara's sister Alicia is making missing posters, sending them around, and is irritated that Steve doesn't seem more willing to help. At some point, Steve is driving on a suspended license, and he is stopped for not using a turn signal and arrested. They do this basically so they can talk to him about Tara's disappearance.
That's great. And this guy cannot follow the law to save his gosh dang life. I am so sick of him stealing and lying and driving on suspended license. Like, stop.
He was held for 6 hours being quizzed about Tara, but they get nothing to keep him there and he gets to leave. The au pair starts freaking out because the police want to question her and she's obviously stressed, duh. And Steve tells her to lie and say that their affair started on the 9th, the night Tara quote unquote left.
Okay. First off, that doesn't make you seem less fucking guilty that you started sleeping with your au pair. It doesn't matter if it was a couple days before or the day. I feel like the day your wife left makes it more suspicious.
Agreed.
Also, this poor girl, I have a feeling is gonna lie because she thinks that they love each other.
He also tells her to lie and say that him and Tara were actually trying to have a third friend join their marriage. And Tara was the one that told him to send those flirty messages to her. To which I say, why do people lie about that kind of stuff, Alexis?
Yes. For context, there was rumors about me in a past relationship by someone I thought was a friend. It is not. But that's wild.
Yes. On February 17th, the au pair is ordered out of the house from her company that she works for, and she goes to the police. But you were right. She lies about being intimate with Steve, and a few days later, she is sent back to Germany. The police do end up interviewing the au pair's friend, and when questioned, she does tell the police about the affair. And interestingly, this chick says that on New Year's, which was 2 months ago, Verena told her they were in love, but nothing sexual was going on. So timelines aren't timelining.
Is it maybe because Steve's the biggest effing liar in the whole entire world? I don't
On
know.
On February 21st, Dina's emails are leaked basically by Dina. She asks a media friend what to do, and the media friend says go to the cops, which is good, and she does, but then it also shows up in the papers, which again just adds to this crazy media circus. Steve also does an interview around this time, and the interviewer asks, quote unquote, what would you say to Tara right now? And he says, quotes, call the sheriff's office. Like that's what he would say to his missing wife.
What?
Basically, he, goes on that if she's gone this long, there's obviously a problem between him and her. So she should just go to the police office.
So he is, oh my God, he's like trying to make himself the victim in this story.
Yes.
Like he's trying to really make people believe that she just disappeared, left her kids behind, and is out there but doodling around with her job and her boss and doesn't even care about him or his kids.
Yes, because also in one interview to the Detroit News, he legit says that he's a better mom than Tara was. So, like, what are you doing, my guy?
I am raging. I am raging. I want to break things.
So then her sister starts making appearances on TV as well around this time. And again, the media is just going like super cray cray. February 22nd, at a press conference, the sheriff says they are going to search Stony Creek to see if they can find anything relating to Tara's disappearance. It was unusually warm, which meant the snow was melting at this time. So it was a good time to do it.
You might say this in a minute. I might just be asking prematurely, but was there any reason why they decided to search Stony Creek?
So Steve and Tara lived super close to Stony Creek,
Okay.
like a few miles away. Like Steve used to run there. They would take their kids there. So I'm sure that's part of why.
Okay.
Steve is instructed by the police and his lawyer to turn in some laptops during this day. And he goes to the station to do it. And then he also asks the sheriffs to help out with the search. But they actually tell him no, that he would just be an hindrance, which is kind of funny.
Because they know, like, everyone's suspicious of this guy. They're like, no, you can't fuck this up. You already did.
The search happens and nothing is discovered. Like 3 weeks pass and Tara still isn't found. And the media is still just cuckoo cray cray. However, on February 28th, there is a woman and she's taking a walk through Stony Creek and she's just being this great lady, just picking up trash as she sees it. And she sees this weird plastic bag. She goes to investigate and there's about 2 inches of pooled blood at the bottom. She takes it home and calls the police. Personally,
Oh
I
my
wouldn't
God.
take
Why
this
would you
bag home.
take a bag of blood home? Like, I'm glad because, like, obviously this is how they find some evidence, but I'd call the police and stand next to the bag so the police got there.
That's what I do. I would not want to take this to my house. But at least she called the police. And luckily, this stayed out of the press. The police test this and they get a hit on Tara's blood and alleged dog hair and are able to get a search warrant for the Grant house.
Yes. Get him.
So on March 2nd, the police go and search the Grant house, but Steve is not under arrest. This is where it gets juicy, juicy. Another search of Stony is also ordered, and very surprisingly, nothing is found. But there's still snow during this time, so probably due to snow and weather, but now this is costing thousands of taxpayer dollars. Anyway, during the search, since Steve isn't under arrest, he asks to leave. And they say yes because they can't hold him there. So he takes their dog for a walk and he calls a good friend that was friends to him and Tara to pick him up. And they're just driving down 28 Mile. Now, at this point, his friend and family think he is innocent, but Steve is acting weird. And his friend is like, you're acting like someone who isn't innocent. And Steve is like, I have something to confess. They took my computer, and he tells him about the au pair and their dirty emails and their affair.
Oh, so that's what he's confessing.
Yes. Steve tells his friend that he wants to see his kids. And this nice friend gives him the keys to his car. And he's like, go see your kids. Steve calls his sister who has the kids. And she's like, we're not home right now. We're actually at a fish fry with the kids at St. Malachy.
Oh my gosh. I think
That
I
is
was I baptized there?
I think we all were. We'll have to fact check with mother, but we used to go there. He visits the kids and then takes the dog to drop him off at the sister's house. And allegedly, from his account, this is where he decided that he wants to end his life. He looks for a gun at his sister's, but can't find one. He does find some pills. He drives to Lansing and goes to his friend Tom Munley's house, who is a corporate lawyer, but no one is home. He then stops at a couple Myers in East Lansing and Okemos and buys some weird crap. He buys a fake gun and a Sharpie to color the orange part to make it look like a real gun.
Stop it right now.
Wait till you hear why. He figures he could die by suicide by a cop, which is basically he wants the cops to think he has a gun so they shoot him.
This man is a coward.
At this point, he is driving and he is drinking. He calls his sister to check on the kids, and then he calls the au pair in Germany.
He can't give her up.
If you're wondering why he's acting like this, while this is all going on, the police notice a bin that was not in the garage on their initial search. The bin is a bin of his children's clothes, I think labeled, but they open it up and there's a trash bag in it. The officer said that it felt like a deer carcass. So they open it up and they see blood and women's clothing. It is unfortunately the torso of Tara Grant wearing what Steve had last described her in.
Oh, no. In
At
their
the-
garage.
In their garage.
In a bin labeled their kids' clothes.
Yes. At the end of their search, they end up taking Steve's passport, $1,507 in US currency, a Sony CyberShot camera, the home computer, monitor, and keyboard, some financial documents, and quote, one white female torso located inside a green plastic bin.
Oh.
So now back to crazy Steve. He's still driving around all drunk and he calls his lawyer and says he has a gun, which is a flippin' fake booty gun. Let me remind you. And his lawyer talks him down. And apparently he tells his lawyer, like, he blames Tara. He cheated. It's her fault. He then calls again and says it was an accident, getting drunker and drunker. His lawyer fully believes he's going to kill himself and phones the police. It's now around 4 a.m. He's near Central Michigan. He keeps driving. At 8 a.m., he actually stops in West Branch at a truck stop to get some sleep. After his little nappy, he ends up near Harbor Springs, which is like the tunnel of trees that apparently him and Tara would drive through a lot.
Gag me.
It is now 2:30 p.m. on March 3rd, and he stops at a small market to get more drinks. He calls back the au pair and tells her that Tara hit him, so he pushed her, and she fell, and it was an accident. He then calls his sister and tells her where he is and his plans to kill himself. She walks outside where police are surveying her house looking for Steve, and she immediately tells the police that her brother is going to kill himself and where he is. So the police send a search team for him where he told her he was. He takes a notebook and writes a note to his children. He gets out of the car and basically his plan is to die from the cold at this point.
What a great plan, Steve.
He takes with him the notebook, the cap gun, and a pint of whiskey. When he hears the helicopters from up above when they start searching for him, he's literally running from tree to tree hiding. And the police say, the police, to his credit, say he does a really good job at hiding from the helicopters.
Okay, that's good. I thought he was just like running around while they were watching him.
The police finally find him. And March 4th at 7 a.m., Steve arrives to the hospital in Petoskey, Michigan, where he is taken to the intensive care unit and handcuffed to the bed. He asks to talk to his lawyer, and the police inform him that his lawyer fired him that morning, which was true. Which is true.
Yes.
And I literally say, and to that, haha. So then he just asks to tell his kids he misses them. He loves them and looks forward to seeing them, which I don't love because you don't know if you're going to see them again. That's just icky.
Also, you have no right after what you've done to call yourself a father to these children because a father does not take away the mother of their children.
Exactly. It isn't until later that night while watching the Duke versus North Carolina basketball game that Steve asks to talk to Kozlowski, which was like the main officer on the case. At 7:46 p.m., Steve waives his rights on a Miranda hearing and waiver statement and finally comes clean, giving a 3.5 hour confession.
3.5 hours?
Yes. And I want to be very, very, very clear that this is his side of the story. So I'm sure that there are some lies involved here, but I'm going to tell you what he said.
I'm very sure there's lies involved because this whole everything out of his mouth since this story started has been a gosh dang lie.
Yes. So the night of February 9th, Steve says that Tara entered the house. He yelled down to her, but she didn't hear because she had her earbuds in. And for whatever reason, this apparently disgusts him. Also, like when my husband comes home from being gone for work, I like run to him and I'm like, oh my God, I love you. Like, you're not going to go down the stairs, Steve. Come
Well, you're not disgusted by him and his earbuds, so.
on. When she eventually gets upstairs, Tara tells him that she unfortunately has to leave a day early to go back to work, and this starts an argument. Steve admits he just wanted to say something to really hurt her, so he off the wall asks her if she's sleeping with her boss. And basically, she's like, F you. She just got home. She's over it. She turns and walks away, and he grabs her wrist. By his account, she allegedly slaps him, and this causes him to hit her back.
I hope she did slap that asshole.
I agree. Again, according to him, they go back and forth. And allegedly, she's like, I'm leaving you and taking the kids, and I'm calling the police. This is when he grabs her neck. He says he did this to make her stop talking, but he doesn't just let go. He squeezes and squeezes and squeezes and keeps going long enough to even grab a piece of clothing to cover her face while he does it, and unfortunately strangles Tara Grant to death.
Oh my God, I feel like it's so hard to strangle somebody. That's such like a intimate way to kill somebody.
Yes, and it's not a quick way either.
Mm-mm.
He then says that he uses a belt to drag her down the stairs because she was heavy and dead weight, which she was a tiny woman by all accounts.
Are his kids home this whole time?
Remember, the kids are sleeping upstairs.
Is the au pair there too?
Au pair is out with friends.
Okay.
He takes Tara's body and hides her in the back of the trunk. So he basically just kills his wife and hides her in the back of his car. And then au pair comes home and he puts on a show.
And they sleep together, don't they?
Well, he yells, "What the F are you doing here?" And then he turns the corner and goes, "Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were Tara." So he puts on the show. He then goes on to tell her that original story he told everyone. And he tells the au pair they're getting a divorce and that they have to delete all of their text because if they are found out, there's no way he will get the kids in the divorce. However, at 1:30 a.m., he calls a computer friend and the computer friend doesn't answer because it's 1:30 a.m. And he literally is like, call me back. Crap has hit the fan. So automatically he's scheming and covering this ish up. Things get more cray cray. On February 11th, 2 days after the murder, he goes to his job that his dad owns and very disgustingly and disturbingly dismembers her body into 14 pieces.
14?
This man strangled his wife and then chopped her into 14 pieces, wrapping them in plastic.
At his dad's shop.
At his father's shop that he also works at. So he's taking her to his job and doing that. He also ends up, there's like, it's a machine company. So they're like massive shredders that shred anything. He ends up shredding her suitcase, a laptop, and among that, a couple other things. After this, he legit goes home. He drops her body off somewhere in the home, picks the children up, and takes them to Meijer to go get groceries for the week.
Oh, yeah. Just casual.
February 12th at 3 a.m., he drives to the most northern part of Stony Creek and places her 14 remains on a sled to scatter them throughout the park.
What?
Yep.
Oh my God, this is horrific.
It's insane. I can't even believe it. And I've researched this for like days and days and days.
I had no idea he put them on a sled. I knew they were spread through Stony Creek, but
in between the scattering, it's taking some time. He legit goes home to see au pair and the children in the morning and then goes back and finishes scattering. The next day, February 13th, he actually goes back to Stony and takes off the plastic and buries her parts more into the snow.
He's one of those super psychos who just like keeps going back and revisiting things.
Yeah. I don't know if you remember, but the police announced they were doing that initial search at Stony Creek and found nothing. Steve even said he would help. Well, that morning of the search at 5 a.m., the search was at 8 a.m., Steve went back to Stony and retrieved her torso, knowing it would be found since it was the biggest part of her body.
Stop it right now.
This poor woman, like, can't rest, right? He originally finds one of those big wooden spools those ones like used on the side of the road for like big electric wires, if you know what I'm talking about.
Uh-huh.
And he hides the torso in there. He runs home and grabs garbage bags and then puts her torso in the garbage bag. He then takes it back to work and basically hides her in the rafters at his dad's job
While people are working?
while people are all working because this is the day of the search. And on March 1st, the day before the search of his home, this turd's walking around his garage thinking, what am I going to do with the torso? And that's when he spots the container of children's clothing. So he goes back to work, grabs Tara's torso, and puts it in there. And that is how police find it March 2nd, which is like this
This
woman is just moved around and around and around. And it's honestly the saddest thing.
this man is the biggest piece of shit in the entire fucking world.
Yeah. And surprisingly, there's more things that make him extremely poopy that I'm still about to say. After his confession, a warrant charging Steve with open murder and dismemberment and mutilation of a body was issued by the prosecutor's office. After he makes his confession, the news obviously goes crazy with this, and the sheriff even makes an appearance on Larry King Live. Also, that Saturday, the police go back to Stony and finally find the rest of Tara Grant. At his hearing, he is held without bond, his only visitors being Kelly, his sister, her husband, and their dad. Sadly, also around this time, there are custody fights over the children between the sisters. Alicia, Tara's sister, hires Michael Smith, who, random fact, actually was the divorce lawyer for Eminem and Kim's divorce.
Oh, wow.
Yep. And she files a $50 million wrongful death suit against Steve, which thankfully she eventually wins. And this gives her the rights to the house, the insurance money, and makes sure that Steve's stinky booty can never profit from this.
I am so proud of her because I cannot imagine being in a situation where my sister is dead and I'm grieving that and I have to go fight to make sure I protect her
Yeah,
and her children. And to be able to do that in your grief is just so admirable.
I agree. And she also eventually gets custody of the children as well, which I think
Thank
is the
God.
right way to do it.
I mean, nothing against Steve's sisters, nothing against them. I know just because your brother is a murderer doesn't make you a bad person,
Hmm,
but I just, oh, okay, we'll get there.
well, no, I didn't put it in here, but in the book that I read for this, she, on some of her visits, she said some not great things about Tara. And I just don't really appreciate that,
Yeah. But I think it is best in a situation to be with the mom's family rather than the dad's family.
especially in this case. While in jail awaiting his trial, this SCUM scumbag starts sneaking notes with Jennifer Kula, which was a woman also awaiting trial on charges for murdering her two children and family pets.
Oh, you sound perfect for each other.
In these correspondence, he literally is bragging about himself and the crime.
No, this fucker.
He also befriends Crystal Conklin, who is a 27-year-old inmate charged with child abuse and the murder and death of her 2-year-old son. Like, is this your type now, Steve? Do you remember that you have two children at home, you disgusting pig man?
I'm, I have no words.
Now, the challenge of deciding between first degree and second degree murder was tough. But in Michigan, there is a second look rule when it comes to strangulation. Basically, what you said, strangulation takes so long that you basically can have this second look. If you keep doing it, that falls under first degree murder. So it's taken to the courts to decide. It takes forever for them to pick jurors because obviously it's been a media circus and they're still doing it in town. So it literally takes from November 27th through December 5th just to get jurors. The trial is wild. Very sadly, the defense is trying to portray her in a negative light, showing that Steve was just at his ends rope. The au pair makes an appearance to testify against Steve, which good. And on December 21st, around 2:50 p.m. on a Friday, the verdict finally comes. They find Stephen Grant guilty of second degree murder. This meant a chance of parole someday.
No,
He is quoted as saying he just won the lottery with this, which you.
that's disgusting. You're a disgusting pig. I do, however, kind of understand it only because there is not a whole lot pointing to premeditation.
There's not a lot to go off of in this case. They were
But I still want him to get it just because he's horrible.
People are freaking out because based on his conviction, he could get as little as 19 years in prison.
19 years?
Don't you worry, Alexis. It ends up being good. The sentencing is scheduled for February 21st. And a week before, and this is just tragic, it is put out there that at least one of the children witnessed the crime. They finally come clean and tell Alicia, the sister, this, which is absolutely
No.
awful.
I I I can't even. That's
Awful.
horrific.
At the sentencing, impact statements were heard, and on the advice of counsel, Steve doesn't speak and, of course, doesn't apologize. On count one of second degree murder, the judge hands down a sentence of 50 to 80 years. Woo, woo, woo.
Let's go.
With a 354-day credit. This means Steve will have to wait until he is 88, that is the year 2058, to even apply for parole.
Yes, get him.
Yep. On count two of mutilation of a corpse, he received 6 to 10 years with the credit. Per Michigan law, though, the sentences would run concurrently. And the turd also has to pay $41,000 to cover legal team costs. Grant's permanent home is now Bellamy Creek Correctional Center in Iona, Michigan, which is about 140 miles from Sterling Heights. He does have a job there, and his sister does continue to visit. Very sadly, very, very sadly, less than 6 months after his son's conviction, on June 13th, 2008, the day before his daughter's birthday, 66-year-old Al Grant calls the sheriff department to report a suicide. When they ask who, he says his own and then proceeds to shoot himself.
That's so sad.
Yes.
That's so sad. I can't imagine the guilt that he had to feel as a parent knowing what his son did.
Exactly. He had a very hard time with it. Apparently, we had a very hard time visiting him and just very sad. I do want to end it on a more positive note, though. So, how I will end this is the children seem to be doing amazing. Alicia, which is Tara's sister, partnered with Turning Point, which is a free and confidential program for domestic violence, sexual violence, and human trafficking. And it seems like a great resource that I will definitely link in the show notes. But every year they do a walk or a 5K in Tara's honor. And the proceeds benefit survivors of domestic violence. And Alicia and the children always come back to Michigan for this walk. So, based on a 2021 Detroit News article that I found, both the kids are doing great and are in college. Tara's daughter spoke about the importance of therapy and how much it has helped her through this. And she's actually in college studying pediatric psychology, which I think she's just going to be such a rock star in.
That's amazing.
Her son is only a freshman at the time of the article, so I'm not really sure what he's going into. But to end this with a quote from the daughter, she said in the same article, quote, I think that the biggest issue that happens surrounding domestic violence is that people are afraid to leave. And so just knowing that no one is going to judge you, that everyone is going to be there for you to love and support you, and that you have help if you need it. Quote. So basically, if you're struggling from domestic violence, please reach out to people or resources such as Turning Point. Steve also hates when people say that it was a domestic violence situation. So tell everyone that he did that. And this is the insane, sane case of Tara Grant.
Domestic violence, domestic violence, domestic violence, domestic violence. Steve, you committed domestic violence.
100%. But yeah, that's the case.
Wow. I knew a lot about that case, obviously, for being from Michigan. We were younger when it happened. What year was it?
2007. So I was in the seventh grade, but I remember a lot mainly because thinking about it, it was that media circus.
Yes. But I don't think I knew all the details. So you did a really good job of presenting them. I learned stuff, even though I knew this case.
Thank you. I went down a rabbit hole for sure. I think again, because it was so close to home, I was so intrigued and kept wanting to like read more and more and more.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know how to end that one.
Basically, check out the Instagram for our book review.
Yes, and we do posts for like every episode. I work hard on them. They're kind of cute. So just go check them out. Follow us, like stuff. Please give us reviews on the podcast, even if they are that Sam can't pronounce the names of cities very well.
Or I make you violent. To which I love. I really do. It made my day. Thank you for so much for listening. Also, send us an email if you have a case suggestion, a story to tell, a question. That's bloodshedbaddies@gmail.com.
Also, just a reminder that our amazing intro music is made by Cousin Vinny. Go check him out on the Instagrams and the Spotify's and the Apple Music.
Yes. And thank you so much to people who told us, oh, I told my friend, I told my work friends. Keep telling people because we like it. We like doing this.
And we like you.
Yeah, we like you guys a lot. We can't wait to see you again next or talk to you again next week.
Okay. Bye.
Thanks. Love you. Bye.